welcome to everyone. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Kelly DeLong. I happen to be the Executive Director for the Kentucky Center for Mathematics. So glad that you have chosen us to spend the next 30 minutes with. So today I'm going to be talking about this book. It happens to be Thinking Together. When we determined this week, we said to ourselves, what are some books that really have, how do I put it, has really had a formative effect on how we think about mathematics? And mine happens to be this book with regards to thinking together. And so today I'm going to share with you information about this book because this book happens to be about building math culture. One of the things is that you can always find us at the KentuckyMathematics.org site. This happens to be our virtual website. That's where you can find the links to this session, the presentation, the handouts, and all the sessions that are on the horizon. So we want to give honor to the authors. This happens to be Rozlynn and Tessa Kaplan. They are teachers just like you that are still teaching and in the classroom. And they said that one of the things that really makes a difference for them was this 9 beliefs for building a mathematics community. I always want to kind of send you to the website. This happens to be a Heinemann product. And so if you're interested in getting this book, you'll be able to find that book on the Heinemann.com site. It is, I've looked around, it's really where you're going to find it as least expensive. So I want to start by saying that this book really brings to life the several of the effective math teaching practices. And the ones that I really want to highlight that I believe go parallel with this book happen to be number 4, which is facilitate meaningful mathematical discourse. Number 5, posing purposeful questions, and number 7 and 8. And so when we're thinking about the research and why is it that this book really makes a difference for me, it's because this book really gave me boots on the ground, great ideas for how to have this beautiful mathematical community within the classroom. And it is parallel to the NCTM research about effective math teaching practices. So the first thing that I'd like for you to do is to take a moment and take a look at the 9 beliefs. So Dance and Kaplan said that these are the 9 beliefs that really begin to build a beautiful mathematical community. I'm going to give us a little quiet time so that you can really take a look at them. So now I want you to go back and I want you to look at it one more time. And I want you to say to yourself, you can only choose one right now at this moment. You can choose one tomorrow, a different one tomorrow, and a different one. Right now in this moment, if you were to think about some of the best math classrooms, the nature of my job is I get to go into math classrooms often, daily, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day in a variety of different classrooms. And I take a look at these 9 beliefs and I think to myself, which one of those beliefs really makes a big difference? There is no right answer. And so what I'd love for you to do is in the chat box, say to me, which one do you think really makes a difference in those excellent classrooms? They make a difference in Sloan's classroom. She says it's number 4. It's okay to make a mistake. Cindy says, when I go to look at classrooms, I think challenging problems help our brains to grow stronger. Laura likes that one. She's a kindergarten teacher, and I know that that has different effects. Keith says, number 4, mistakes are great, especially if we learn from them. And I see, beautiful, beautiful. I love this about the chat because I can go in there and take a look at it. So we're going to explore the way that the book is set up and some real facets of this. So keep that one in mind. thinking about, can I understand a little more about that one? And then as we have a conversation toward the end, we're going to see if maybe you're still in that, you still believe that that one's your favorite, or maybe you've changed just a tad. So the question that we have is, why is it that I love this book? And I love this book because it helps to guide my thinking as I walk into classrooms. I can feel classroom culture when I walk into a school. I can feel it. It's kind of an electricity in the air. It's a way people interact with each other. And then when I go through the doors of a classroom, I can see it in the mathematical kind of world. This happens to be Rebecca Nadeau's classroom. She's a second grade teacher at Grants Lick Elementary School. She's here in Campbell County. Grants Lick is right down the road from me. And if Rachel Redden is on this afternoon, Rachel knows Rebecca. And hey, yep, Rachel says, I knew that that's who that was, because she can recognize it in the back. So you're right, Rachel, that was Rebecca's classroom. And in Rebecca's classroom, when I go to visit, they're in math workstations, and she always has me going into the classroom and working with the students. And so this was the day that I was able to help them facilitate that at the class, that station at the classroom level. It is a low hum. It is a kindness that the children show each other. And it is very clear to me that Rebecca kind of grows this from the beginning. So that's why I love this book. So there are a series of posters that Heinemann has put together, and they are so cute. So take a look at those first two. So in your handout, you're going to see that I downloaded 2 versions of those. They are free companion materials that are located on the Heinemann website. There are ones with these cute little images on them. These are my favorite. And then there's ones without the images on them in case we just need the words, because the words can be a little bit bigger. So one of the ways that I anticipate you guys might be able to use these is to print out online posters and to place them around, place them in your room, and or maybe you have all 9 of them, but you only put up 1 because that's what you're going to focus on for that week. And we teach kids these skills. So in the book, Dance and Kaplan said that, all right, so the first 2 develop this respectful community of learners. And I want you to take a look at this statement. And so I'd like for a couple of you to unmute, if you would, and to say to me, why is it, number 1, is to develop this respectful community of learners? Why is it that everyone has the right to learn? I'm going to go back to those. Everyone has the right to learn, and we respect the ideas of others. Why do we think that these are the first 2 in this series of beliefs?
I think the direction of the arrows in the pictures, that's a good picture representation, shows nicely. It's a communication, not one way of transmission. And in order to have a communication, you need a community, and in the community, you need to respect each other's ideas, and everybody should feel that they can contribute something to the conversation.
Thank you, Funda. Absolutely. Someone else?
Well, we all approach a problem in a different way, and when we are open, we can learn from one another.
Absolutely. And that's Tammy McDonald, who happens to teach kindergartners. And when we say we develop this respectful community of learners, we do it from kindergarten, and we do it all the way up through high school. So this is not a book. I do want to emphasize, this is not just an elementary book. This is a book that that I used to go all the way up through high school, because it is this sharing of their mathematical ideas that really indeed does make a difference. So my favorite part of the book, that as I got this second chance to really look back and dive back into this book, is the authors have put together a read aloud section. And so here are some of the books that they suggest that we use as read alouds to help teach respect. And I want to give a shout out to a former teacher of mine, Caitlin Elvis, and she used the book Chrysanthemum and read about chrysanthemum and did that at the beginning of the school year with her, at that time, third graders, and helped kids to really think about what it means to be respect. Take a look, Dee, I thought about you when I said, look at one of the books, Hooray for Wadney Wat. I adore that title. And we know that indeed that's going to have to do with being a little bit different in the classroom and thinking about teaching respect. So Dance and Kaplan say that here's some teaching moves, things that you can do with your classroom that really help to support a student's right to learn. So in the chat, I would like for you to type in ones that you actually use in your classroom, and maybe a little note as to why is it that you think that this one is important. The ones that, there's a whole section in the book. Each one of these has, you know, almost a page of thinking about private think time. Don't steal my thinking. And of course, that references please don't shout out, because when someone shouts out an answer, then it stops and it steals their thinking. So I really love that term. Turn-in talks, of course. Lots of sections about peanut butter and jelly, pencil and pen. Again, how to help a partner. Really, it's important that we learn how to help a partner without telling them the answer. There's an art to that. And revoice retelling is one that I have highlighted. And honoring all students' thinking and revising the thinking. So I can see that Julie Warner talks about teaching kids how to help a partner. I see indeed that Lucy Anderson says we need some private think time. Lucy, I want to tell you that when I do professional developments, one of the things that I will tell the folks in the room is that we need some library time. And the library time really helps the participants and those that are in there to have some time to ponder the information. And I say it's very hard not to go ahead when I give a question or an activity, not to turn around and start talking. But I want to honor yet again at the adult level this private think time. This private time.
That's important, because I was one of those kids that needed that extra time to process and think, and I still am that way. So I appreciate people who understand that even at the adult level.
You got it. And I want to really highlight that we really need to be thinking about the information that I'm presenting at both the kid level, but then a lot of you are really teacher leaders, math teacher leaders. And so by doing this helps with that also. But again, this is that everyone has the right to learn. So these are some teaching moves that we can all do within our classroom that helps everyone having the right to learn. And then I take it to the next level and say, as you're doing your professional development, as you're in your professional learning communities, please make sure to think about this on an adult level. So another thing that's important is that we model respectful behavior with the tone of our voice, our consideration for everyone, and of course, celebrating those differences in the classroom. I think that this helps to be respectful, and I want to give a shout out to when I get to go across the state of Kentucky and I go into Kim Jones. Kim was one of our presenters last Tuesday, and the tone of her voice and the way that she redirects students is so beautiful. And she never raises her voice, and she always, reminds them of what they need to be doing and has structures set up. I think Nicole Wyman at 9th District School, she does a really good job with that too. She's got this beautiful, smile on her face that really makes that difference. So again, being respectful of others. Being respectful of others' ideas, I want to talk about that we have to explicitly teach. So I want you to hear me say those words, explicitly teach what it means to listen, what it means to have respectful disagreements, and what it means to honor mistakes. So in the chat, could you type in, and again, looking for all 50 of you guys, I'm so excited, there's 50 folks here today, all 50 of you to type into the chat, how do you help students listen or respect the ideas of others? So I'd like a couple of you to unmute if you want to talk, but also everyone, so all 50 of you. Type it in the chat. How do you help students to respect the ideas of others?
Well, Kelly, one of the ways I do it is, I may ask like you, what's the what did you get for an answer? And I won't tell you if we're right or wrong, and then I'll go ask the next student, you know, and I wait until I've asked all the students, because I'm dealing with small groups, before I say, you know, or do you agree with, you know, your fellow student, you know, before you give the actual answer.
Yes, beautiful. Great ideas, Jennifer. I see that Jackie says she's got math response stems, and Jackie, that's exactly right. I can see a lot of those sentence stems around the classrooms so that students begin to have the beginning and the end of what to say to each other. Chris Mock is a third grade teacher that does a really good job with that I can see. Kim says that she loves number talks, and indeed, number talks really develop that. Thank you, Kim. That, you know, we at the Kentucky Center for Mathematics love our number talks. As a matter of fact, this is a plug for our next book talk, is about more with that. Look at those beautiful comments there in the chat. I've got icons to follow. Look in each other's eyes, talk to each other. So one of the things that Dance and Kaplan say, and so thank you for that, is I saw that they talked about a respect check. And that's when they ask the students to look around the room. Is everyone do we have the physical posture for respecting each other's ideas? Because we are getting ready to have some really important math conversations. So I think that is fantastic. So there's our sentence stems. Look, you guys knew. Keith says that modeling those conversations are crucial. You're exactly right. You know, the art of conversation, students don't necessarily know how to talk math, okay? And so that's our job, is to model those conversations. So when we respect the ideas of others, this is that big umbrella. Everyone has the right to learn, and we respect the ideas of each other. You guys just gave me some beautiful examples of how you do that in your classroom. So again, that goes from Laura saying she models and reminds them that they must listen. Again, Kim also mentioning the fact that that number talks and modeling are so important with these students. And I asked the question, is it only in August that you do this? Oh no, it's all the time. Indeed, indeed. Oh, and I'm so glad, because I didn't happen to see Kim Jones in there as I started, but I see that my friend Kim Jones says, indeed, teaching students how to be good listeners and practicing those behaviors is exactly what we need. Spectacular. So now beliefs 3 through 5, take a look at those cute images. Number 5 is one of my favorites. Take a look at what it says. Good mathematicians are brave and they try new things. Isn't that a great way to think about going out there and really being a risk taker? And so those are fantastic. I love those. Mistakes are great, especially if we learn from them, and challenging problems help our brain. Remember when I had you take a look at them to begin with? Many of you guys mentioned that 3 and or 4 were 2 of your favorites. So in the read aloud section, these are some books that encourage confidence, perseverance, and resilience. So I thought this one was funny, The Girl Who Never Made a Mistake. So you know exactly that that's the reverse of that. One of my favorite books, so I used to do Padilla seminars with The Little Engine That Could, and really think about the subtext of that book that is a classic over the years. So again, some more. Look at those. What do you do with a problem? Thinking about the kids, and take a look at the hugging tree. This was one that I found that was in addition to what the authors gave us, but look at that one, a story about resilience, about a tree that's right there on the edge. And of course, we all know about the little dandelion, or the little flower that can push up through the asphalt, or that can push up through the concrete in a big city. So I want us to take a look at this book called The Beautiful Oops. And so I'm going to launch it and have us take a look at it. It's just a minute in 10 seconds, but think about how you could really do some fun, fun literary integration with this book.
Beautiful hoops, beautiful hoops, beautiful hoops. possibilities. Bent paper is something to celebrate. A little drip of paint, let your imagination run wild. A scrap of paper can be fun to play with. A smudge and a smear can make magic appear. Stain has potential if you play with the shape. Holes in your paper are worth exploring. When you think you have made a mistake, think of it as an opportunity to make something beautiful. Beautiful oops, beautiful oops, beautiful oops, beautiful oops.
So what I think is super cute about that one is that it happens to sing song, which I thought that was just spectacular, and a way that kids can interact with it. A minute 21, you all. That's all that was a minute 21. And so think about those of you that are doing lessons for students during this non-traditional instruction time, how we could just do a whole math lesson over a beautiful oops that they could make. All right, fantastic. I see lots of you loving that book. I did too. I thought it was precious, absolutely precious. So heading on to the next thing, that this building brave mathematicians, thinking about that idea of that it's okay to make mistakes, that brave mathematicians, that good mathematicians are brave, and challenging problems make our brains grow strong. One of the things that I want to put out there is be careful about kids saying that that's too easy. There's an interesting thing that a kid has confidence to say that, but we must remind all the kids in the class that when you say that it's too easy, sometimes that makes others feel bad, right? Because we didn't get it that fast and we didn't get it that much. So maybe we need to make sure that we have to be careful. We have to be careful with that, right? Thinking about that something is too easy. So we're going to have a conversation about this idea of building brave mathematicians and having mathematical confidence. Perseverance, valuing mistakes, taking risk, and self-reliance. Can you either unmute your mic? There's 50 of us in here, so lots of people with some great ideas. And or type it in the chat. What does it look like in the classroom for a student to persevere? What does it look like in the classroom for a classroom of children to value mistakes, to take risks, and to be self-reliant? I'd love to hear you, and I'd love to see you in my chat. I've got good weight.
I think that valuing mistakes from an adult perspective, I think that we've probably learned for the most part and are growing in our ability to do that. But I do struggle with several of my students who do not want to make a mistake. And when that happens, shutdowns occur no matter how many times I can say to them that it really is okay and we're going to work through this together, but they don't always believe me. So I'm looking at or wondering how else I could better support them in that area.
Kim, my suggestion to you is that it takes time and time and time, and so they always going back, reminding them about that mistakes are great, especially if you learn from them, because they live in a world at home, or they live in a world in the neighborhood or on the playground where such mistakes, that's not true. Mm-hmm. So I say to you, continue with that beautiful atmosphere in your classroom where you do this. Indeed. My friend Marta says, remember the words not yet. And so I love the suggestion, Marta, is that we have that power of yet.
Okay. Thank you.
we're reminded, thank you, Bonnie, for reminding me that in one of our books, we talk about competent and confident. And so growing those competent and those confident learners. Wow, time goes fast when we're having a great time. So I want to tell you that 2 more of the beliefs go under this heading of great minds think differently. And so there are different strategies for solving a problem, and it's really not just about the answer. Indeed, 100%. It's not just about the answer. So in the book, what I thought was terrific, and I love, if you'll take a look at this math, I'd love for you to see. The child's name is what? Blessing. You're exactly right. How precious. And you can see that Blessing has a problem. And one of the things that's important is that we emphasize to the child that there are different strategies for solving the problem as a belief, and that it's not just about the answer. So I circled the I can at the bottom. Take a look at what her teacher asks her to do. Show all of my thinking, check my work, and write a number sentence or inequality that matches that. Indeed, our authors happen to be, one of the authors happens to be a first grade teacher. And so imagine that I'm a student and I'm thinking about the fact that I just don't put the answer down, but that there's more to it. So one of the things that I noticed that I have is many of you that have experiences with teaching children that it's about the destination of understanding their mathematics. I would love for you to unmute your mic and talk about teaching your kids to show their work and that they know they understand about the strategies. And some people talk about how they develop kids who do these things. I'm thinking about Taylor Phillips, who's got some kids that I know do this. I'm thinking about Laura. I'm thinking about Felicia, who have kids that really show their work. Why is that important that we really ask the students to show their strategies and to think about not just getting the answer, but it's the destination?
I think a lot of it, comes from modeling as a teacher and also sharing lots of student work and letting the students show their work and explain their thinking. And so I think students learn a lot from one another when they can see the strategies and the work that they're using to get to their answer.
Beautiful, Felicia. Dee, you've got this idea of rough draft. Will you tell us a little bit more about it? Because I adore that thought. Seems to be resonating with those out there.
So for me, that comes from, we allow ourselves to do that with writing all the time. Like it's a thing that actually, it's one of the good things that comes from English language arts work. We could pull into math. We seem to pull the wrong ideas in from reading instruction and language instruction. And it is the thing we really should pull in, that when you write something amazing, you don't generally do that the first go around. You go back and redraft, and sometimes have many, many drafts, right? And people who write for a living have other people look at their writing before it ends up being published. And so I don't know why we don't do that in math class. It really is sort of the way great ideas happen. Mathematicians who are pushing math into all sorts of amazing horizons work together in teams and share ideas and rough draft it and make conjectures and just keep going. And so, all math should operate that way.
I think that if we could take that rough draft idea and scale that across the nation, I believe that our math classrooms would have that vibrant feel that we aspire to. And the good news is that I know that all of us here have that idea. So thinking about that with regards to kind of building our strategies, and that it's not just about the final answer, but it's our destination to get there. So again, thinking about how great minds think differently, one of the things that the authors did say is to remind us to be very careful with praise. that praise should not, again, that goes with the Carol Dweck idea about growth mindset, and be specific with it. I really like the way that you showed the way that you use the cubes on your paper. So one of the takeaways from that was for me to remind myself to be careful with praise, because it's about helping the child to always be on a journey. So our last two beliefs are good learners ask questions. So the student asking the questions, and then questions from the teacher help us to grow. And that's the reverse of that, thinking about when the teacher asks me a question, something just as easy as like, are you sure? I used to do that in my middle school math classroom, and I loved it when the kids were like, oh my gosh, you know what it's supposed to be, because they know that when I'm asking that, I'm asking them to clarify, and I'm doing that in a loving way because I know that they're headed down the right direction, and I want them to give honor to what their thinking is. The authors kind of mentioned to us that the categories that we ask, questions that we ask generally fit into 3 categories. So I'm watching my time, and I want you to know that there are these clarifying and probing questions. I love it when I can see teachers. So what tool did you use and how did that help you to use it? Or what in the problem told you that? So how did you know that there were, that you needed a missing add-in, or how did you know about your grouping? It's also to guide and to challenge and to extend. I think that this is underutilized in the classroom, thinking about challenging the students and extending the problem itself. Could you create a problem, a similar problem that I could give to the class? Thinking that as a student really understands the mathematics, can they turn it around and give you another one? And then of course, always questioning to assess understanding. So those things are very clear. One of the things that dawned on me as I was preparing for this is this idea of notice and wonder is such a powerful questioning tool. And I want you to know that I see this everywhere in the state of Kentucky with this idea of notice and wonder. Asking questions and then saying, what do you notice and what do you wonder? What a beautiful open-ended way to have kids talk about their mathematics. Also, there are some talk moves to encourage questioning. Does anyone have a question for, I'm thinking about Julie. Does anyone have a question for Julie with regards to her mathematics? And having this classroom be, like Funda said, I chose the icon where all of the arrows were moving between students, and that's when you really have the atmosphere for students to know that they're in a cohort and they're among friends. Here's some more read alouds that encourage that thinking differently. All kinds of interesting books, and this one, Rosie Revere Engineer, was very much piqued my interest in thinking about how could I use that book in a classroom to help kids to encourage this out-of-the-box thinking and to give value to that. So I'm going to end today with circling back to these building mathematical community ideas, thinking that the first 2 have to do with respect, that the next 3 are thinking with regards to building brave mathematicians. The next one's great minds think differently. And then the last 2 are thinking through questioning. So my question to you right here, are you still in that same? I want all 50 folks chiming in. Which belief is most important to you? Where are you in this? Is it everyone has a right to learn? Where are you in this? And I would like for some of you to unmute and to talk to me a little bit about why the one you chose is so important to you. If I could have 4 or 5 of you do that.
I picked number 2 at the beginning, and I still pick number 2 at the end. I think that respecting the ideas of others is kind of like the beginning piece that you have to teach from the very beginning through the very end. And I think that if you have that in place, then a lot of the others can fall into place if you have a good solid set with that.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like your passion with that, Julie. Someone else?
Hi, Kelly. It's Nicole.
Hey, Nicole. Did you see I gave you a shout out earlier?
Yes, ma'am, I did. Thank you. I agree with Julie, but then I also, mistakes are great, if we learn from them. Life is all about making mistakes. It's not just a mathematical thing. I know when Dee was talking about the rough draft, you know, you write something and then you have to critique what you wrote, and it's a life skill, I believe. And so allowing students to really understand and come to the fact that it's okay. Like I might not get, you know, the answer correct. However, I may have, when you were showing that paper that had the I can statements at the bottom, you may not have gotten the answer, but you may have worked really hard and done a good job on your way there. There may have just been one little mistake that was made to get to. That's why showing the process is so important. But that's just one thing I think.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else want to share? Well, what I see in the chat box is lots of different ones, and that's the beauty of this book. And so you can see why I'm in love with the book, because the truth of the matter is it may take you years and years, because it'll take you all year to get one of these mathematical community ideas to be so kind of institutional in your classroom that then you can move on to the next one. So I love that you have the posters. I do want to mention to you that in the handout that I made for you, I downloaded the companion materials. Want to reference us back to the book can be found at the Heinemann site. That's where you're going to find it as the least expensive. It'll be a great purchase for you in your classroom. The companion materials are fantastic. I want you to know that I saw this implemented in classrooms across a district that I was involved with. And many of my friends are on today with that. And it really does make a difference when we have that beautiful classroom culture. I want to remind you that the Kentucky Center for Mathematics is always on in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. Sloan and some of the rest of you guys, Jackie, Jacqueline, I can make the list, Carrie, and the list goes on, are always with us at, in the afternoon at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing routines for reasoning with Dee. You don't want to miss it. Cindy's going to do developing number knowledge. This is one of our favorite Wright books. It really is a cornerstone and a foundation of what we do here at the Kentucky Center for Math. Thursday is our Jenny Bay Williams Math Fact Fluency book, where we believe it in our soul. And on Friday, we're gonna go on up into the high school world and really talk about taking action, implementing this, because this book has really made a difference for Leah Dix-White, who's an important regional consultant here with KCM. So we hope that you'll join us, no matter if you're elementary, join us for the high school one, because it's always good to have some thought partners and thinking about your growing, right? Good questions make you grow, make your brain grow. You can always follow us on the Kentucky Center for Mathematics, the KentuckyMathematics.org site. Please follow us on our Facebook and our Twitter. That's when we're gonna know everything. I'm giving you an air hug. So I got my Bitmoji rolling this weekend, and giving you an air hug because I love to be with my math friends, and I'm so thankful that many of you thought to spend the afternoon with us. So I thank you so much.
And here's where Kelly usually asks you guys to unmute or put in the chat box to let her know some takeaways or any sort of kudos you would like to give for her. So it falls to me to do that for her. So lots of good things going in the chat box already.
Yay. I love that Lucy Anderson, actually, she got a little Bitmoji hug or a little heart in the chat box. I don't even know how to do that. I need to figure that out. So glad that you guys enjoyed the session. We really do love taking a look at those, at the connection between the beliefs. I want to encourage you to use those read alouds in your classroom. So maybe tomorrow, some of you will, or maybe next week, some of you guys will do the oops. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? All right, fantastic. Well, we thank you for spending your afternoon with us. We were 50 strong, and so join us every afternoon. We're quite the group of national math educators that have a passion for what we do. See you guys, thanks.